Okay, today we're going to have a video chat. As I said, the newsletter is going to show up in all kinds of different ways. So, today's video. Well, one of the things I want to talk about is the Trump administration's attack on Harvard and nonprofits in general by now threatening to use the tax code by pulling their tax exempt status, and in the case of Harvard, also involving the Department of Homeland Security to prevent them from getting foreign students. This is all designed to economically force Harvard to bend the knee. And this is not new in American history. Once again, for me, and the reason this is called Qualified, which is part of the title of my book, At the Intersection, is because there is a glaring lack of knowledge about the intersection of our historical story. A lot of people, like I say, keep going to Europe and fascism and not recognizing, primarily because a lot of these things happen to Black people in the United States, that many of the things we are seeing today are things that already have a precedent here in the United States. So what's really interesting to me is Donald Trump and Andrew Johnson. So if you don't know about their similarities, both men were impeached by the House. Both men used the power of the federal government to undermine, to ignore the rule of law and norms. So the Freedmen's Bureau, which many of you have heard me talk about, was something that was established after slavery to help the formerly enslaved. But just like everything else that was designed to help African Americans, it also helped white people. So prior to the end of slavery and the Freedmen's Bureau, poor white people had no access to education. They had no access to economic engines to help them rise. They lived very much like serfs in the United States. Again, it's just not something we like to talk about. The Freedmen's Bureau didn't just educate and help the formerly enslaved, it also helped poor white people with education, with resources. And so the truth of the matter is, every modality ever used in the United States to help African Americans has helped raise the standard of living of poor whites and ultimately middle-class white people. So we look at the Freedmen's Bureau, and then we go back to attempts to free the formerly enslaved folks. That directly was copied and used by the suffragettes. And then we come forward to the Freedmen's Bureau, and then we come forward to the Civil Rights Movement. I mean, as most people should know, the Civil Rights Movement had the biggest impact on white people. And by this, I mean the Civil Rights Movement helped women, LGBTQIA, and started the movement, the disability rights movement. There has never been a modality in the United States, a mode, a method that was just designed to help African Americans. It just hasn't happened. We have never had individual redress just for ourselves. Every modality has existed in a way that helped everyone. And even if the modality did exist to just help African Americans, it still would have helped everybody else, because it would have helped the economy, it would have helped stability in our society. And so these arguments that Donald Trump is making, that this is contrary and he's going to use the law in these ways to stop this, are the same types of arguments that Andrew Johnson made during Reconstruction. And it is our lack of knowledge of this that gets us hung up. You know, I put a post out the other day about Bernie Sanders and AOC and their amazing attempts to get out there and talk to the public, but how those conversations around class that they really specialize in only give minimal service to race. And I tell you, on TikTok, I got a lot of pushback. People were like, well, we don't have time to deal with race. We're facing the destruction of our Constitution. These are the same arguments around the Civil War. The fact that we never have time to deal with race is why we keep ending up at the same place. It's why we're back to, 1865, 1866. We're back there because we never have time to deal with this. Class is never going to be moved forward, meaning class consciousness, unless we address the ways race is used to prevent that. So you have to address the ways racial animus is used to prevent poor and working class and middle class white people from seeing themselves aligned with Black and other people of color. If you do not address that, class consciousness is not possible. We've tried it. Bacon's Rebellion tried it, and laws sprang up to prevent it. Martin Luther King and the People's March tried it. Martin Luther King with the sanitation workers, and that's when many say he became the most dangerous to the United States, because this is not something that those in power really want. And so unless we address race, we can never get there. So it is not an aside. It is the urgent thing, because when we remove the mask and tell people this is a trick, that is how we get to class consciousness. We don't get to class consciousness and then race issues and the wedge and the screen of racial contempt suddenly disappear. That's not how it happens. So, President Andrew Johnson, I'm going to read this. He vetoed the Civil Rights Act of 1866 because he basically had the first reverse discrimination message, the same message that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and all these people use today. He said that the establishment of the Civil Rights Act of 1866 for the security of the colored race safeguards which go infinitely beyond any the federal government has ever provided for the white race. In fact, the distinction of race and color is by the bill to operate in favor of the colored and against the white race. Now, this is insane, because at this time, what he's talking about is giving rights, just basic rights, to the formerly enslaved, and no discussion of the fact that white people had by law the ability to own, misuse, sell, profit from Black people that entire time. So just the equality of rights was offensive. And this is ultimately the driver behind the ideological fight with Harvard and nonprofits. Doge apparently tried to embed themselves in a nonprofit that is not a governmental agency. They want to stop dissent and ultimately advancement of Black and other people of color. Now, the Harvard fight, they try to say it's about anti-Semitism, but as I said in my previous newsletter, if it was about anti-Semitism, why was J.D. Vance in Germany telling the people there that they should allow free speech from the Nazi Party? So if it's about anti-Semitism, why in Germany are you promoting the use of free speech for the Nazi Party, but in the United States, you supposedly are against anti-Semitism? Or why was Elon Musk appearing in Germany by video telling them to stop apologizing for their past? And the only past we can assume he's talking about is the Holocaust. So what we know is the ideological issues related to Harvard are not about anti-Semitism. They are about a perception that there has been too much advancement and too much input toward a multiracial society, and too much advancement of African Americans and other folks of color. What's interesting is that data tells us that for African Americans to reach economic and employment parity with white people would still at this moment take 1 to 3 centuries. 1 to 3 centuries. So we're nowhere near parity, and it's too much. So what this administration is doing is using the IRS, Department of Homeland Security, and others to fight an ideological warfare to put people out of business, put people out of education. I mean, this is nothing about fairness. And so I wasn't surprised with the response I got on TikTok, because a lot of that response came from people who consider themselves progressives or progressive liberals who really support Bernie and AOC because they just were unable to understand that connection point, and how until we address race, there's always going to be this way to manipulate us away from class solidarity. So thanks for tuning in today. And tomorrow we'll see how I feel. Maybe we'll do a newsletter. Maybe we'll do audio. I really encourage you to subscribe to this channel. It helps me put more of this out into the world, get deeper, be able to spend more time. It's a really great deal. $5 a month or $50 a year, so that's a discount. You get access to the book club, Qualified, How Competency Checking and Race Collide. We're doing a book club. You get access to high-level e-learning, a course called Why We Talk About Race that I encourage you to sign up for through the membership. And also you can get a membership for your team. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.